The Empowered Women Project was born as a blog when I was spending some time in hospital. Well, my life changed overnight in March last year. I was involved in an arson attack and my marriage broke down. My whole life changed overnight. March this year, I tried to take my own life, and at that point in time, I really wanted to disappear. In my existence prior to being admitted to hospital, I weighed out food religiously, I trained religiously, I had a really busy, hectic life, and that's what kept me distracted from the misery that I'd suffered prior to that. But being in hospital forced me to do absolutely nothing. I suddenly wasn't able to weigh my food, I wasn't able to dictate my day. The day was already dictated to me, you were doing nothing. So writing gave me a little bit of purpose, a little bit of hope. It was just something that I got up to do. And like I say, once I shared my story as a blog, other women shared their own stories too, and I've just kind of been along for the ride really ever since then. And now that I'm on a little bit of medication and I'm having some therapy, I am like a new woman. One of the interesting things that's come from the project is a project which has asked women from all over to write to their 18-year-old self. So I did it as a bit of an exercise for myself. I thought I had a lot to say to her. So I asked women of the world to contribute their own.
The letter writing experience for me was really beneficial because I was just telling myself to be kinder to myself in my thought processes. And as I was writing that, I thought, as a 44-year-old, I could still be. That's something I still need to practice on a daily basis. That voice of, oh, you're not doing this or that, or this needs to be better.
The name immediately caught my attention, like Empowered Women Project. I was like, that is something that I can get on board with. And when I read that it was about speaking to your younger self, I just kind of thought, this is absolutely what I need.
I've had close to about 250 letters from across the globe actually. And one of the recurring messages that comes up is just stop caring so much about your body, which was interesting because I guess that we're always told we should look a certain way, and more so now than ever, there's people are attributing beauty to success. I think social media can be really damaging for that. I think that people look at big influencers and role models and they think, oh, well, she looks that way and that's why she's that successful, and there's a really damaging message in there somewhere.
I just look back at myself in photos and think, what was that all about? And you should have just recognised, well, I said to myself, you are beautiful anyway. I didn't really think I was beautiful until kind of mid-20s it kind of came to me. But it doesn't really matter, it's not even about exterior stuff now, it's about, oh yeah, once you go through life, it's all your stuff that's going on inside that matters. So I was just trying to tell myself, stop focusing on that, stop worrying about that. If you're skinny enough, if your hair's right or whatever, it's just going to come to pass. And it's actually inside, you're really nice and people really like you.
At 18, I had just left school. I went to uni that September to do psychology, but that was a kind of decision that wasn't really based on anything. I just grew up and everyone was told you will go to university, so I was like, okay, well, I didn't even question it. So at that point I think I just felt under pressure from all sides in terms of where I was going and who I needed to be.
I did maths when I was younger, and so I've done psychology now, and I think maybe at the time if I'd known myself better I might have just gone for that, but it's just lessons learned.
I was in this relationship that just was awful, and I can't even say man, the boy was like a year older than me, and I think like he had a lot of his own stuff going on, and I think he probably felt under a lot of pressures but wasn't able to do anything with that except take it out on me. It would be years and years and years before I ever used the word abuse because it didn't register to me that could be what that was, because in my head as this like 18-year-old I was so caught up in the kind of drama of it all that I genuinely believed I was like, no, we are the greatest love story of all time, like no one can possibly understand, it's just that we have this thing that's too deep and too complex, and really it was just, well, no, he's just awful to you. And I was just so convinced that I knew best and that it was just like no one else could possibly understand what I was going through, but really it was just I was failing to understand what I was going through. So.
Hindsight's just an amazing thing, and you don't know when you're 18 but you know when you're 44, and I just wish I'd known a lot of that stuff or been more self-assured back in the day, because I could have taken over the world.
So now I'm 26. I run a sort of women empowerment company, which revolves around talking about mental health, talking about feminism, talking about how we can help each other in the community. I make t-shirts and tote bags and all this stuff, so I kind of sell like women merch and just sort of try to rally up the crowds to care about stuff and talk to each other and make a difference.
I don't really see an end for where the Empowered Women Project could go. I think the interesting thing is it's taking new directions all the time. So I think I'm the woman seeking empowerment, so that's where the Empowered Women Project comes from. It's a project for me to try and explore my mind and talk to other people along the way and share experiences. It's become a real storytelling platform where people feel like they can come forward and share their story. Maybe without that platform they might not have kind of done that. And again, writing is such a therapeutic experience. It has been for me, and I think it is for other women as well. But we're branching into all sorts of different things. So one of the main things the project does is these no filter hangouts, which really bridges the gap between needing help and having to go and ask for medical help. So these hangouts are more community based, they're pop up, they're a bit more accessible. Random acts of kindness are another big thing that we do. So we take flowers out and just hand them to strangers in the street. And the difference that such a simple act has made to some women's day is huge. So I think that we'd like to continue doing that sort of thing. But who knows? It started from my laptop when I was in hospital, and it's just been like a crazy journey. And I just hope that I can keep the creativity up and make some differences. Yeah.